Okay. Welcome, everyone, and happy Kansas Day. We are so excited to join all of you today to tell you about our newest grant program, the Downtown Revive and Thrive. And this is a rehabilitation for innovation and incubator spaces. And we're going to talk more about this new program, some opportunities, guidelines, all the fun stuff to deal with the application, some pro tips, all that fun stuff so that you are prepared for this application process. We're really excited to have our team with us today. And so I'm going to get that started. So I'm Tricia Purdon. I'm the director of the Office of Rural Prosperity in the Kansas Department of Commerce. And I'm joining you today from the docking building. So our new building that Kansas Department of Commerce is now housed in up here in Topeka. And then I'll let my team introduce themselves and then we'll get going.
Hi there, everyone. My name's Maren Legali. I'm the program manager over this program in the Office of Rural Prosperity.
Hi, I'm Cassie Alexander. I'm the program specialist.
I feel like Kelly should introduce herself, even though I didn't put you on the slide deck, but you are worthy of an introduction, Kelly, so go ahead.
I don't know if everyone can see me.
Yes, we can.
Oh, you can. Okay. Hi, I'm Kelly Hansen. I am one of the grassroots strategy developers. I work remotely here in Western Kansas, and I am happy to come and visit you and see the projects you have in your communities.
So our team will be more than happy to help you throughout this process. So just keep in mind that as we're kind of going through all of this, if you have any questions, one, go ahead and drop them in the chat. I'll try to answer them live if we can. I've got my chat window open. But also, if you have any questions, this is the team that you can reach out to get some help and support for your application process. So let's just talk about what the agenda is for today. So you're all ready. We're going to really talk about the purpose of this grant program. And again, pro tip, the purpose is really fundamentally the main thing. When you're going back and you're looking your application and you've answered all of our questions, take yourself back to read the purpose of this grant program. Make sure what you're proposing to us truly meets the purpose of this grant. That will help you in kind of reframing everything and framing everything you're trying to explain to us. I find that that's really been the key differentiator between a successful project and maybe a project that didn't quite translate. So, always a good tip there. We're going to walk through the timeline, both for our grant process and then also for your process as you administer and fix up those beautiful buildings across our state. We're going to go through eligibility. We're going to walk through eligible and ineligible expenses. And I will say those are not hard and fast. We'll talk about that more, but we're pretty darn flexible with this program. So required supporting materials and application, this is hard and fast. Those are really required documents that we can't really get away from. So that's really important to get on top of those first. And we'll go through those in detail. We'll talk through the Main Street Design Guidelines in case you're not familiar with those guidelines. The State Historic Preservation Law Review, that process, project milestones. So what we expect from you, so we can make sure we're all on the same page and working collaboratively together over the next few years if you're awarded. And then speaking of that, we'll talk about the reporting requirements. So that way you are well aware of the time and talent that you're going to need to give to this project other than just your elbow grease and all the fun stuff that's going to make this building thrive. We'll talk through our office hours. So how we can support you during this application period, and then any additional technical assistance, and then we'll open it up for questions at the end. That was a lot. This is going to be a long webinar, I guess. So let's talk about the purpose of the program. And let me preface this that we were super excited to receive word that this funding was coming to the Office of Rural Prosperity. This would not have happened without the partnership of the Kansas Legislature and the Kansas Department of Commerce. So we're really grateful that we've got the opportunity to help get additional dollars into these small towns across our state. So the purpose that they put together is really that an opportunity to repurpose existing downtown buildings to create spaces and provide equipment for pop-up retail and restaurants that contribute to livable, vibrant communities. This initiative aims to create high-quality workspaces. So thinking about co-working spaces or new office spaces, restaurants, anything really that would create a workspace that blends technology, collaboration, and historic preservation, because we love our beautiful old buildings across our state. The goal is to repurpose these existing downtown buildings to create spaces and provide equipment also. So that's something that's different in this program versus others, is it does allow for equipment purchases for pop-up retail, restaurants, workspaces, innovation centers that really contribute to that livable, vibrant community. Think foot traffic, think an opportunity to grow and incubate a new business and a new opportunity in your town. That's really what we're striving to see for this grant. All right, so I told Maren before they started, when I do an awkward pause, that means go forward. So if you see me giving awkward pauses, I'm trying to be cool. Okay, so timeline. Let's talk about the timeline for this grant process. And I'm sorry, it will move very fast. We have to make sure all funds, all checks are cut by the end of this fiscal year. So unfortunately, our grant is only open from January 29th, yesterday, until March 10th. And that is going to close at 5 p.m. So not midnight. So if you've done grants with us before it's been midnight, but what we've quickly found is if there's challenges where you're applying and something glitches, we can't provide you technical support at 11:59 p.m. and we don't want that to happen anymore. So we're closing these applications at 5 p.m. So our staff is available to support you every single minute that we're available. So the review period will last from March to April because it does take us a little bit of time to get through all these, and we do anticipate funding decisions likely by mid-April is our goal. So we have 2 grants running concurrently, this and the other webinar we did for public broadcasting stations. So we just got to time out the workload, but our goal is to have this done by mid-April. And then contracts would be awarded and funding, all that fun stuff would be done by our deadline internally of May 1st. Okay, so let's talk about our applicant eligibility. A private building owner must have an eligible local partnering organization to collaborate on the grant to complete the administration of the grant award. This organization will commit to supporting the project through fiscal administration of the grant funds, but it doesn't necessarily mean they have to be the applicant. So that is a big difference between now from this program and HEAL. So the building owner can apply directly with this program, but they must have a collaborating partner like an economic development organization, a city, a chamber, a Main Street organization, just someone who's willing to be a partner hand in hand throughout the process that will help you make sure that you got your quarterly reports submitted. Make sure that the building owner is on track with our program deadlines. We have an anticipated timeline that we think you should be meeting in order to have a successful project and meet our end of our term deadlines. This applicant, you can decide who this is, but we'll also designate a primary point of contact that Commerce will be working with and our team will be working with throughout the grant award, and who's going to be responsible for managing that communication between the building owners and Commerce as needed. So that can be that Main Street organization, but it could also be the building owner. If the building owner wants to be the one who is just on top of it and communicating with us directly, fantastic. But sometimes they're just busy trying to get this building and this business on, up and running, and they don't have time to constantly talk with us and our team who wants to find out how you're doing. So you pick who that is. If you want more than one, that's perfectly fine too. You can note that, but just make sure that you do pick one primary point of contact that we'll work with.
Trisha, we had a question in the Q&A that I feel like would be kind of helpful to answer
Sure.
pretty quick. So someone had applied for HEAL, and so they were curious if they are eligible for this program, if they are, have applied already for HEAL this round.
Yes, this is a brand new grant program, so everyone is eligible. So as long as you meet the population requirement, which is 5,000, am I say that right? Yeah. So 5,000 population, as long as your town is less than 5,000 population, you are eligible. There is no things that going to kick you out for this one, so it's brand new. I also saw we had another question too. Can a community foundation be a partner? Technically, you can't distribute funds to a for-profit business. So in that case, if you can still be a partner, but when you fill out your paperwork, then you would put the business as the one who would receive the funding directly. And that's something we can work out too on the back end. But I would just make sure you put that the community foundation is your supporting partner who will help you make sure that your quarterly reports are turned in, and will hold your hand and walk you through your problem solving process when it happens, because I guarantee you'll have a problem or two when you go through a building renovation. Um, and so, yeah, those are all eligible partners. But if you don't want to disperse funds to a for-profit business, then we can disperse the funds directly to that business instead. And the next question was also if a 501c3 can apply, and yes, absolutely. So we are happy with any 501c3, 501c6, whatever that organization in your town is that helps do stuff like this. We're not super strict on this. So whatever makes sense to you. We've even had an instance where a church was the applicant because for a different program similar to this. That's perfectly fine as long as they're willing to hold your hand and be your teammate in this process. Okay. So, well, speaking of which, that's really funny. So we were just talking about this, the fiscal or supporting organization. So our Kansas Main Street programs, they are outstanding partners. If you've got a Main Street program, use them. They're wonderful. Our economic development corporations or organizations, even your regional economic development organizations, if you don't have one in your town or in your county, look to your regional planning organizations. Our chambers of commerce, of course, are amazing partners. Our cities, our counties, even your school district can be a partner. Maybe it's an old school building you're trying to renovate and turn into a co-working space. That's a great partner. 501c3s, 501c6s, local community foundations, and then of course our tribal partners. If you don't fall into one of these, or those partners don't fall into one of these categories, just reach out to us and let us know. Again, we really try to be very, very flexible to support our rural towns, because your tiny town with maybe 10 people might not have one of these types of organizations. And so we are happy to brainstorm with you of who would make the best sense to fit your project. So let's talk about project eligibility. So just like HEAL, this building does need to be in the downtown or the primary corridor of the rural community. Some of our very tiny towns hardly even have a downtown left, or barely have a rural primary corridor through your town. So just make that business case of why that is a central piece of your town. Again, we try to be pretty flexible on this, but we do Google Map you and to see what the address is, to see if we buy that argument. The properties do have to be in cities or communities with a population of 5,000 or less, so that's our cutoff. In this building, this project is meant to renovate interior spaces to create that functional incubator or facility that is designed for temporary retail, workspaces, innovation centers, or restaurant operations. We left that pretty high and vague, so you can tell us what that means to you, and that's perfectly fine. This project will create a space that will increase downtown foot traffic. So that's a key piece that we want to point out. Because when we worked with the legislature, when they were creating this program, that was one of their key criteria that they thought would show and be a difference maker in a town, is if this building is renovated and you're having these awesome new pop-up or incubating businesses in here, that the downtown foot traffic would increase. So not just improving business in that specific building, but other buildings in that location. So when you're picking your town, or you're picking your building in your town, and if you're not sure if it's on the main corridor or not, if you can answer that question, that it will increase downtown foot traffic, so increase traffic to other businesses or spots at that building, that's how you're going to say yes, no, maybe, if it's eligible. The buildings do need to be currently underutilized or vacant. So we are not as hard on this program as we are in HEAL. HEAL pretty much has to be a vacant building to count. This could be underutilized. So if you have a storefront that's maybe using one side of the building for storage, or one side of a two-part building for storage, and they're going to turn the other side into a pop-up coffee shop or whatever, then that could make an eligible space, even though it's currently being used as a storage unit for the building or the business next door. We do want to make sure the buildings are older than approximately 30 years. Again, that's we're pretty flexible on that. If it's 27 years old, it's probably going to be fine. I don't want to date myself because it's like I started looking at our previous ones and like, oh, well, that's old as I am. But our buildings have to be at least 30 years old. So now they do not have to be on the historic registry. They do not have to be historic. That is often what people think, that this has to be on this, has to be this historic building. A building that has some cool old tin ceilings and some cool brickwork that looks really neat, that counts. That makes it look significant. So if it's just a plain cinder block building though, or it's a metal, like a barn type building, that's probably not a good fit. But we're not as hardcore about this one as we were with Heal. So if you've got something that's your only building you've got left in your downtown, but you've got a co-working space that can go in here, let's talk about it. Projects that have to show potential for reuse, revitalization as economic drivers in the community. So again, just like the foot traffic, this is a key piece that we will be heavily looking at in that scoring for that review. So make sure you tell us that this is going to be an economic driver in your community and why. That's going to be a key question that you'll need to answer in your application. Okay. And we're continuing on with project eligibility. We do want to make sure that you're following Main Street design guidelines. And this might seem like it's kind of a hard thing to fit, but really they're guidelines to help make sure that your buildings stay beautiful. We don't want to see a whole bunch of barn style buildings with, tin slapped up on the walls, unless you're going for that rustic look, I suppose. But it doesn't keep the beautiful brick or the architectural details that were originally put in that building alive. And we just really like to make sure that history is preserved and celebrated as part of your community. So that's the reason why we do that. But I would say the big thing that we really hate, and we will probably tell you to do something else, is if you try to put vinyl windows in a commercial building. That's just not a good use of your dollars and not a good use of taxpayer dollars either, because they just don't last. So that's probably the only thing we're probably going to be sticklers on those things. So just keep that in mind. The supporting organization and building owners will be required to sign a contract. So both of you agreeing to the conditions of the program. One frequent question that we've always gotten on Heal, when they have, like, we'll use the person who asked about community foundations. The community foundations will sign the contract, but we're actually going to be holding the building owner who the ultimate recipient of the funds is, excuse me, the hiccups. That's who we're going to come back at if they decide to take the money and fly to Nicaragua or something. So that's who we're going to be holding accountable. So we get that question quite a bit. So yes, the foundation can sign on and they can be a partner, but the one who ultimately receives the money is who our legal team will work with if there's ever an issue. So construction must be complete within 24 months. And then that incubator tenant space has to be ready and open for operations within 30 months. So similar to Heal, you get 2.5 years basically to get something going. Since this is kind of a co-working type space, it just has to be available to be leased by someone. So if you don't have that awesome remote worker just yet, but you have the desks set up and those lamps set up and the internet's ready to go, that'll count as being complete. The building must be occupied, and then they have to pass all occupancy permits or local permitting inspection requirements. This is something that we've added just to make sure that it's safe. There's nothing I hate more than going to see a building that they say is complete and I see raw wires sticking out of the walls or out of the ceiling. It's just not safe. And we want to make sure that everyone is safe in these buildings once they're completed. So if you have local occupancy permits or local permitting that is required, that you'll need to tell us that you've passed. Maybe just forwarding on an email or something is perfectly fine. We're only going to be awarding $100,000 per city. So we will be spreading this award. We only have $500,000, so we will be spreading it across the state. So, you can feel free to apply for more than one building in your town, and make us be the hard decision makers. If you just can't decide between two amazing projects, that's perfectly fine. Actually, we encourage that. We'll be the bad guy if you need us to be. You got some awesome opportunities in your community. So if you have difficulty, however, and maybe you're at capacity and you can't sign on for more than one project, let us know and let's see if we can help that business owner find another partner to help them apply. We're happy to do that. Let's talk about eligible expenses now. So I'm not going to list all of this. Traditionally, I would always say, like, if it goes in the building and you tilt it upside down and you shake it, if it falls out, it's not eligible, but that's not the same this time. But think about anything that's really going to make that building able to get that occupancy permit. So it's your masonry, it's tuck pointing, it's windows, it's really anything that's going to make that building beautiful again. We're not super strict about this. It can't be something that is consumable. So we're not going to cover your paper towel rolls and your trash bags. But we will cover the rollaway dumpster. So we do want to make sure, though, that you keep those expenses that are related to like demolitions and like that to a minimum, but those are eligible under this program. You can also allow for 5% of the grant award to be retained by a support organization for the project administration. I mean, that does take away from the award to go towards the project. So it's up to you of how you guys want to structure that. But if, they find that, hey, we're doing a lot of paperwork on this, then, you can put some money back to that supporting organization to help you fill out all this stuff. It's not a heavy burden. It's not a heavy lift. But if they're finding that, the grant application process was heavy and they're going to be doing the quarterly reports and that seems like too much, that you can't do that. We have a question. I'm going to stop for just a second that someone asked. They have a question about, they have several empty buildings downtown that are pretty new, but were rebuilt after a fire to look historical. Most of them have never been occupied and the insides are a blank slate. Would these count even though they're not old? Yes. Yeah, that will still count. Like I said, it's not a hard and fast thing, but they're currently underutilized. So yeah, absolutely. So, and we've seen that in a few towns where that's happened. Okay, so let's go back to ineligible expenses. Acquisition costs. So if you're the cost of buying the building, that is not eligible. We don't allow that pretty much for any of our programs. Leasing contracts, one-time programming such as speaker fees, event fees or salaries, consumable products like I mentioned before, cleaning supplies, paper goods, that sort of stuff. It's not eligible. We really want these grant funds to be used for the actual physical construction or the equipment to help the business run and operate. So please just make sure that you keep it to that if you can. Oh, someone has the question, if the building be city owned. Yes, it doesn't matter who owns the building. If it's a city owned building, that's fine. We don't care. Okay, let's go ahead and go forward. Building use. So this is where this differs significantly from HEAL. The building must be used for one of the following: product prototyping or testing, commercial concepts, temporary retail, flexible workspace, innovation centers, or restaurant operations. Now I say this as this is the intent of what you're going to be using it. Okay, so if you've opened up this building and you develop the most amazing restaurant that your town has ever seen, but there's no other locations where this awesome restaurant can go to, and they decide this is their permanent location, ultimately that's going to be fine. But the intent is that you're helping them prototype and get their business ready to go, that eventually they will grow out of your space and go somewhere at a different location. And so then you can help incubate another building. So keep that in mind. But that is something that we can probably be fairly flexible on as time goes on. But I will say the intent of the program is not to have a permanent occupant like HEAL is. This is really meant to be something that you're helping get somebody going. And this is a temporary location. And eventually they're going to move on to another building that's ready to go for them, but that they can afford to maybe do on their own without so many grant funds. Okay, so application components is where it gets the technical pieces. Luckily, we're able to put this program in submittable. That's why we were able to roll this out so fast. There are some questions that are new. If you haven't done a Commerce grant in the last couple years, we do have some new questions that are now required for every application. Those are capacity assessment questions. Those do not really affect your eligibility so much, but just let us know how much support that you're probably going to need moving forward. I guess it could be a tiebreaker situation, but that really isn't what we're intending to ask for in those questions. It's more like, hey, if you've never administered a grant before, we can note that, and Cassie and Marin can be like, hey, I've got you, and they can give you some extra support. The narrative questions, that's a standard thing. Again, we always tell everyone who applies for ORP programs that imagine you're having a cup of coffee with me and the team of ORP. Kelly sits down in your coffee shop in your town, and you're just telling her about your dream vision for this space. That's what we want to see in your narrative. Don't get too intimidated. Don't get freaked out by this big grant application. Just think about it as just writing down what you would say as you're having a cup of coffee with a friend. Then we have the budget section and the timeline section. So we try to make this simple as possible. We did upload an option to use an Excel sheet if our table is giving you fits. We got some feedback once by Submittable that was challenging. So we did offer that as an option this time. And then you'll have some supporting materials and then supplemental materials, which we'll go over. So the supporting materials, this is pretty standard for most programs, but the first thing that is totally different is a signed letter of commitment from the building owner and the support organization. So again, we're going back to HEAL round 1, where we allowed business owners to apply directly. So that's different. So that we're going to allow that again for this round. But we have to have a signed letter that has both signatures on the same page. It says, yes, I'm committed to supporting this project. We're going to do this together. We're a team, basically. There is a template on our website that tells you exactly what you can have. And if you guys want to spruce that up, you just go right on ahead. But we did give you a template. We also require building photos. Those have to be interior and exterior. If we don't receive any exterior building pictures, you're not going to score very high. Vice versa, same thing. Interior, if we don't have anything, interior pictures, probably not going to score so high. Unlike HEAL, we're not expecting these buildings to be the ugliest in Kansas. We're just expecting them to be underutilized or vacant. So if the building was occupied 1 year ago and it still looks pretty decent, great, that's fantastic. If it's also super, super ugly and pigeons have taken in and they've decided that is their new home, it is also eligible. So it just depends on which way you want to go. The reason why we did it that way is because we do not require match for this program. So whereas HEAL, you have to have 1-to-1, we expect $100,000 in, $100,000 out. This program, it's just $100,000. So you're not going to go very far, probably with 100,000 like you could with 200,000. So that's why we did it that way. We do want to see some bids and estimates. We know it's a very short timeline. So at least something that tells us that you have your idea wrapped around or the budget kind of figured out somewhat. We really hate when people don't apply for the maximum and they ask for $55,000 and then they finally get a real quote and they're like, oh, it's $150,000. So please at least try to get some sort of bid or estimate from something for your project. We also need a signed W-9 form for that support organization and also for the business owner, whoever's going to receive that check. So we'll need both of those for them. Signed state policy regarding sexual harassment. That is for whoever the grant recipient is directly from Commerce. So going back to that question, if the foundation can't be the one who receives it, but they're the partner, then that building owner is going to be the one who submits that sexual harassment form because they are the ones who will directly receive the funds from Commerce. Then we'll have a signed copy of the Office of Procurement and Contracts, our OPC form. That just certifies the company. We have a lot of standard forms of the state. I apologize. We try to make them easy. Then we have 2 new things. So this is required only for nonprofit organizations. So if you're a city or you're a school district or you're a government entity, you can ignore this bullet. So on nonprofit organizations, we have to have a screenshot. Doesn't have to be the paid certificate, just a screenshot submission of the Kansas Secretary of State good standing status. So just take a picture of your computer screen, do a screenshot with your computer and save that as a PDF and upload it. It doesn't need to be, you don't have to pay the $15 or $20 to get that certificate of good standing. We also need for nonprofit organizations a submission of a tax clearance certificate. And at the very beginning of this webinar, I said there's some things that take some time, so do this first. This is what I'm talking about. You must do your tax clearance certificate like tomorrow. Do not wait until March 10th. I'm sure the state offices are going to love us from this webinar, but seriously, go get that done now. Do not wait until the last minute because it does take a minimum of 24 hours to get that done. And we've seen it take up to 48, 72 hours in the past. So do not wait to the last minute to get this done. If you are applying for a request of $100,000, a signed copy of the Israeli anti-boycott form will also be needed with your application. All of these templates and forms are saved on our website, on the website for this specific program. So if you have questions or you're not sure what to do, just ask us. We once had someone who filled out and made their own sexual harassment form, verifying they would never sexually harass anybody. No, you don't need to do that. Just use our standard forms. So don't make this process harder than it has to be. And we really try to make it very easy for you to fill this out. But these might be good jobs for like an intern or somebody to help you. They're pretty simple. Just get them knocked out. So one of the funnest parts of the new program and process that we have at Commerce is our new standard operating procedures. And my favorite part of that has been this scoring rubric. Every year we've always heard like, well, I wish I knew how you were scoring them or what you thought of when you were scoring our applications. Now this is very transparent. You can see everything we're looking at when we're reviewing your application. We've seen such improvement of applications since starting this process. It's really been incredible, the quality of applications we've received since we've reviewed and provided this scoring rubric. So thank you to anyone who said, please do this, because it really did finally get done and we're pretty excited about it. This time we've simplified the rubric even more from the last rounds. So now there's just 3 columns that you can look at. But please pay attention to this scoring rubric and use it. When you're done with your application, where you think you're done, print off your application, make a PDF of it, print this scoring rubric off. Again, it's on our website. And then give the whole package to someone who wasn't part of your project. So they're coming in with completely, no bias, no thoughts. Just like we will be coming in and looking at your application, right? We might be aware of your community, but we're probably not going to be aware of your building. So give this to someone, have them score your application. If they score you and you score above a 70, great. If you score less than a 70, not so great. And now you know where you need to improve. So that's kind of our threshold, just like in school. If you get below a 70%, you get a 69, you're probably not gonna be getting to do any after school activities. That's what I tell my children anyway. So you're probably not gonna get any grant awards either. So no reward for anything less than a 70. So please make sure that you have someone look at this, score you like they would be us, and so that you can improve your application before you submit. I will also say that if you're just, you're scared and you don't know what to do and you want to just submit early and submittable, you can do that. And we can take a look at that if you submit like at least 2 weeks in advance. So we can take a look at that application and just say, oh no, you've totally missed this or this or this. Now we will not go through your narrative and review your narrative, but we'll at least make sure that you didn't miss any major piece. Okay. Let's talk about the Main Street Design Guidelines. And I talked about a little bit initially. Those guidelines are available on the Downtown Revive and Thrive website. The scope of the project must follow the guidelines as stated in the program guidelines and assurances of the application. And it's also going to be included in the grant agreement. Again, why we do this is just to show that this building is still going to be beautiful when you're done. And that's all the Main Street Guidelines are, is just to make sure you're preserving the integrity and the beauty and the architectural details of a building. We are not as intense as the State Historic Preservation Office, as fantastic as they are. they are under a different set of guidelines than we are. But we do want to make sure the beautiful buildings stay intact as much as absolutely possible. So that's why we do use the Main Street Design Guidelines. But speaking of state historic preservation law, if you are in a historic downtown or your building is already listed on the state or national register of historic places, or you're a contributing building in a historic district, you do have to follow the state historic law process. So that goes above and beyond historic or the Main Street guidelines. You have to follow the state historic preservation rules. What we do is when we've got a building and you submit, we will submit your project to the State Historic Preservation Office for you, so that they're aware of your project. So if you already know that you are going to be one of these people, you can go ahead and submit to SHPO too if you want, but just let us know that you did do that. But make sure that you are very clear on your scope of work. So your current and proposed floor plans are absolutely essential. Photos of the affected areas, details on your finishes. So take a really up close picture of that trim across, that runs across your ceiling and those baseboards. Tell them exactly what kind of finishes you're going to do. So what kind of floors you're going to put in, what kind of lighting you're going to be putting in. And then they will also require renderings, especially colored elevations, blueprints and engineering drawings. That's not much time to do that. So this is something that we allow past the deadline. So again, you submit what we require for our application, and then we will submit it to SHPO. And in the background, you should be working on all of this, because they will not finish their review for your project until you do give them all of this. So just something to balance your workload as you're going through this process. You only have 7 weeks to apply for this program, so we do not expect you to do all of this upfront, but you will have to have that before SHPO will sign off. And you will not receive your funding from us if you are awarded until SHPO does sign off. So you just got to keep that process going. Okay, let's go ahead and go. Project milestones. So our plan is for award notifications to be around mid-April 2026. We will have the full grant agreement. We're going to move this thing super, super fast through the system, and we're going to have those done by the end of April 2026. And then you have quite a bit of time. You have 1 full year to at least hit 50% project completion. That's just kind of when we expect this to happen. You're working on an old building, that might not happen exactly at that timeline, but we like to see it right around that ballpark time. So 50% site visit will come out, we'll come look at your project and see how things are going. And then we would expect you to have your project completely done, construction completely done by April of 2028. So you have 2 full years to get your construction done. And then you have 6 more months after that to make sure that it's up and ready for tenants. So when you think about that equipment that I said is eligible, so let's say you're going to do a pop-up, clothing boutique, but you want to make sure they've got a point of sale system, some racks and a counter or that sort of stuff. That stuff you can do in the last 6 months. So get that tenant finishings done that last 6 months. Then we'll do our final site visit. That will be completed by October 2028. And then at the same time, you'll complete your closeout form. And then we get to, tour and show it off. And don't be surprised if we invite some awesome representatives and senators and awesome dignitaries like Governor Kelly and or anybody else. I guess at this time it won't be Governor Kelly anymore, but it'll be someone in that role to come and check out this gorgeous project that you've done and the impact it's had in your community. So we love showing off your work, and we love showing off the impact that these have had in your community. So reporting requirements. So all awarded projects will require quarterly progress reports. So that's standard across the board for all Commerce grants. So just keep that in mind. If you're getting more than one, you better balance your workload. Those also have to include receipts and progress photos. So again, we just really like photos. We like to see how it's going. And then so make sure that's included. Quarterly reporting is due at the end of March, the end of June, end of September, and the end of December. So again, if you don't want to be doing paperwork between Christmas and New Year's, just get it in early. Timely completion of these reports are necessary to ensure the project stays in compliance. If you get too far behind, it does impact your capability to apply for any other grant programs from the Office of Rural Prosperity. We talked about how that capacity question in the beginning. Your history of commerce work does impact you for other applications. So if you're behind on any of your other ORP grants and you're going to apply for this one, get paperwork caught up to Marin and Cassie before you apply so that you don't get dinged. But other than that, just make sure that you're staying caught up and don't get behind. It keeps you on target. Okay, so office hours, we're going to have an opportunity every single week to have virtual office hours. And is this one? It doesn't have the day of the week on it. So I don't know what February 5th
I think
is.
they're Thursdays. Sorry
They're
about
Thursdays.
that.
Okay, no, that's okay. So every Thursday from 10 to 11 a.m. So the 5th, the 12th, February 19th, February 26th, and then March 5th. So you'll have 5 opportunities to meet with us. That does not mean you can't meet with us outside of those dates. If you're always in the middle of some scheduled meeting every single Thursday at 10 a.m., just email us and we will be more than happy to hop on a call with you and talk through whatever challenges you're facing on your application. But it is a good opportunity to hop on just to see what other questions other people have. They might have a question that you needed to know and you didn't even need to know you knew it. So just hop on, join us, and we're happy to answer those questions. Okay. Additional technical assistance is available upon request to Marin. Marin will be your point of contact for this grant program. So marin.legali@ks.gov. I think that's the last slide, right? So I'm going to go ahead and, yeah, questions. There we go. We've got 2 questions in the Q&A, but if you have questions, you can drop them in the Q&A and we will answer them. The first question is, can a co-working space be in the unused second story of a building? The first story is in use. Yes, absolutely. In fact, you can see where Marin's at and Cassie are at right now. We are in the second floor of a space that's currently being used downstairs. Our offices are upstairs in a co-working space. So we love that. It's a great use of space. So yeah, again, underutilized is great. It doesn't have to be vacant. The next question is, what about a business currently running as a restaurant that is in a 100-year-old building that we've restored? We are needing to upgrade and improve operations. Not really looking to add space for other businesses, just expand our own. It's just guessing they don't qualify. That might be a question we talk about in more detail. I would like to learn more. If you're trying to expand your business and grow that opportunity, I definitely think it's something we consider, but this really is meant more for incubation of a new business or expanding, something along those lines. So that's probably a no, but you can talk to us more about it in detail. So speaking of which, someone's asking, can you elaborate a little bit on the temporary and incubator space? We left this vague intentionally and because 1, that's what the legislature gave us, and 2, an incubator or a temporary space could mean a lot of things to a lot of people. So, the space that the Office of Rural Prosperity, as you can see where Marin and Cassie are at right now, and normally I'm at, that is a co-working space, and we sign a 2-year lease, and we're there temporarily. We're not a permanent structure, we're not the building owners of that space. And people are coming and going all the time in that building. So a building like that is totally eligible. A project like that is totally eligible. So you can make it what makes sense to your community, but the idea is that you are trying to create a space that you can foster ideally more than one business to get their feet under them, get their idea kind of going, build up enough capital over so a period of time that eventually they can afford to do this on their own. That they don't have to rely on this work to get going. So we love to see spaces though too that help create multiple businesses. So one of the pictures we had in the slideshow was of the Kitchen Collaborative in Fort Scott. That was a emergency heal project, first round. And what they do is they create a space where a person can bake their goods and make their goods and then sell their goods and then have a pop-up restaurant experience in that space, and eventually get to where they can do that so often they generate enough money, and then, okay, I'm going to buy the building down the street and I'm going to get this thing going. So that is the intent of this program, is to help incubate and get things going. We don't expect them to we don't have terms for that incubation period. We don't have terms for how long they have to stay as an incubator or how long they have to before they have to get out. That's not in this program. So we try to be very flexible, if that helps at all. Um, so can the bids and quotes for work come from an engineering and or architect design firm and not a general contractor? Oh yeah, absolutely. It's really hard to get bids and quotes in a rural community. And so anywhere we can get something, as long as it seems fairly legit, then yeah, we'll definitely count that as an eligible. We really just want to make sure that you have your mind wrapped around what that project cost is going to be. We don't want anyone to get surprises and be like, oh, I'm only going to apply for $25,000 because I don't think it's going to cost more than that, but you've never actually talked to a contractor. And then 6 months from now, you're begging for more money because this is one-time funds. So that's all I've got. Okay, does an upstairs space require an elevator installation? Oh goodness, no. No, that's not required. Um, Most historical buildings are grandfathered in for that, unless I think it's like Kansas law is something like 3 or 4 stories is the only time you're required to do that. If it's like a federally funded operation, like federal offices have to have full ADA in those spaces. So if you're going to put USDA offices or something on the second floor, maybe you have to have an elevator, but not for us. So can this grant be used as part of 50% if awarded the HEAL, or does this have to be on top of the HEAL?
I think this
I think my
question
brain is fried. Can you guys interpret this one?
yeah, I think it's asking like, can this be considered part of the match for HEAL? So
Mm,
yeah, I think that's what this is asking.
sure. Yeah, I mean, basically, the very similar programs. I think this fits into HEAL more than HEAL fits into this,
Mm.
right? So, um, okay. I know there's no match required, but if we can provide in-kind services, does that help in scoring on our application? Oh yeah, it definitely helps. Um, we want to see that you've got some buy-in, but it is absolutely not required. It also doesn't hurt your application either if you don't. So we're not penalizing you, but it does help you. Um, we like to see that buy-in. So, I mean, but looking at the scoring rubric, that's not a big piece of the scoring rubric. So it's not a huge deal. So sorry, can this be considered part of the HEAL? Yes. So yes, it can be considered part of HEAL. We've had some really good questions.
Yeah, you were rapid fire there, Trisha.
I'm losing my voice. You guys have to jump in and answer some of these
Yeah.
for me. Okay, so if you're going to be applying for CSP tax credits, can this grant be used for an auxiliary part of the project to do overlapping, I assume? Oh yeah, no, we can overlap. That's perfectly fine. The only time we really have difficulty overlapping is if you're going to go after a CDBG commercial rehab grant. Um, those definitely can overlap, and this would fit into CDBG commercial rehab. However, the CDBG commercial rehab requires that you go through an entire bidding process, and then the state makes sure that you picked the right bids and make sure that the environmental review is complete. That stuff has to happen, within a certain time frame, and we expect your project to be done within 4 or within 2.5 years. Unlike HEAL, though, we don't have that mark where you have to start construction within 4 months. We loosened that intentionally because we didn't require you to have any architectural renderings or anything like that, because again, you only have 7 weeks to apply for this program. But if you are planning to overlap this with a CDBG, keep in mind that you need to make sure you tell us that you're doing that. It won't hurt your project, but it will make sure that we're aware of your timeline and we're not just like a year from now, like, where are you? Why have you not done anything in your building and freaking out? But that way we're very aware. We're also all in the same division. So I talked to Andrew and our teams on the CDBG like every single week. So we work very, very closely together. So just let us know. But yeah, we love stacking. We love you taking advantage of all the different opportunities we have. But I will say one thing I don't think we really pointed out in this application or in this PowerPoint. we do spread the money out, right? So if you are one of our list, we just finished actually today generating a list of every single town in the state of Kansas that has never received funding from Commerce since 2019. There's 375 towns left on our list, incorporated and unincorporated towns. If you're one of those 375 towns, we are going to love you and you're likely to get funded. But if if you've gotten a heel and you've gotten a seed on the same building and now you're wanting this one for that same building, your odds are not maybe as good as someone who's never gotten something. So if that makes it clear. So you're not disqualified, but if you've also never received anything, you're really qualified. Okay. So the 5+ businesses on the scoring rubric, is that the same time or just clients of the space? That's clients of the space. So using the building that we're in right there in in Independence, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 businesses in that location right now. But sometimes there might be 8 and some days there might be 2. So it just depends on what's going on because it is a co-working space. But we want it to be set up to support 5+ businesses. But if you think of like the Kitchen Collaborative in Fort Scott, they are set up to have 4 separate little kitchen spots in their commercial kitchen area. So that would be 4 businesses that potentially could be popping up as a little restaurant in that space. So that would give them at least 4, plus they could have something in the restaurant side or the retail side. So that would make them over 5, if that makes any sense. So we want to see as big of an economic impact as we can get, right? With our investment. And that's what the legislature wants to see as well. Okay, so this would allow us to amplify some grant money we receive from a foundation. Does it look good to show how this grant would make our concept even better, impacting even more people? Oh God, yes, that makes a great application. Tell that story. That sounds wonderful. Okay, how do we know if our city has received any of these grants? We are in Oswego, population under 2,000. Ooh, can I share my screen and show people how to do this? Let me find my window first before I do that. Hold on one second. I'll make sure I got this here. And then I'm going to share my screen and show you how you can find this out. Share. Okay, team, can you see the Transparency database?
It is loading, but yep, we can see it now.
Okay, so what you're going to do is, I'm going to show you how to get to the Transparency database. So you go to kansascommerce.gov, and then over here on the right, well, hold on, you'll see these 3 marks with this nice yellow dot here. You'll click on that and click on the Transparency database. And then the easiest thing to do is go over here to the left and it says browse by location. You just type in your town. So let's look up Oswego. There you are. Click on Oswego. And then here is every single grant that the community of Oswego has had in this administration. So you can see that Oswego received CDBG CVs, they've received a Roz marketing grant, and they've received a Towns in the city of Oswego. So you can scroll over and then see particularly who received those funds, what town received those funds, and if the grant is still open or if it's closed, all that fun stuff. So that's where you can find out if you've ever received that funding. It is not a prerequisite to be on my list of 375 towns to get those bonus points. It definitely helps us when we're looking at our distribution of grant dollars. It's just what we really love to see. So stop share. I can go back to this.
If you need a moment to rest your voice, I think I can handle the next question.
Thank you.
Yes, I was just like, you've been doing a lot of talking. Bill asked if there's a rent amount requirement per location, and we don't have any rent requirements that the business or entity must pay. So no requirements in that regard. And I think that's the kind of end of our questions. We're running towards the end of the hour. So if you have any last minute questions, please put them in the Q&A. Otherwise, we hope to see you at the office hours or just email us. Um, Lots of good questions today.
Yeah, so many. Don't wait to the last minute. It's another pro tip. Do not wait to the last minute. Get your applications in early if you can. We know it's a short time turnaround time on this, but we try to make as many things as flexible and easy as we possibly could to make this go fast for you. Um, if you're stressing and you're freaking out that this is too hard, you're probably working too hard. So just come and call us, and we'll talk you off the ledge and work through it with you. So our team really is here to support you. Do not hesitate to reach out. That is what we are here for. So okay, good luck, everybody. We can't wait to see you all at the office hours next Thursday. Happy Kansas Day.